Welcome to the Whole Life Living TV Network, a show that explores simple ways to live life at your highest potential with outstanding topics and positive news from a healthy, happier, more loving conscious mindset with internationally known guests and everyday people taking belief and applying it towards mastering your dreams and life. Isn't that what we're all here for? I'm Sherry Gideons. I'm your host. I'm the international speaker, author, and life mastery coach, helping you to clarify what you want in life so you can win and succeed. And my guest today is Karen Kieffer. Very pleased to have you. Karen is a serial entrepreneur, investor, and philanthropist, dedicated to helping coaches create profitable practices so they can build their dream business and live their ideal life. After years of producing millions in sales for other organizations, Karen realized it was time to apply this expertise to her own business and help others learn how they can do the same. After working with a variety of coaches and mentors that helped Karen skyrocket her income, profit, and growth, Karen realized how critical the role of a coach is in every successful entrepreneur's business. With this in mind, Karen founded Transformation Gurus, a company that specializes in helping individuals find their ideal coach and coaches build their platform and increase their profit. Welcome, Karen. We're so glad to have you today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Awesome. Well, tell us a little bit more about you.
Thank you so much for having me.
What's going on right now around developing these programs for coaches.
Sure. Well, we are just a couple weeks away from the launch.
You know what?
So I'm really
One of
excited
us has to
about
put the earphones
what's
off.
kind of going on. Sorry, are you getting any
So
feedback?
you take yours off.
Okay.
And if you get feedback, just put me in. Ooh, that was worse. If you get feedback,
Now we're getting feedback.
oops. Okay, hold on.
Okay, is that better?
Can you hear me? Awesome.
Okay, now I can't
All
hear
righty.
Oh,
You
nope,
know
I
what?
gotcha.
I'm a person that's going with the flow. That's what I'm all about living in
we
the
love
moment.
it, right?
Nope.
I hear you. I'm the same way. You can't cry over spilled milk. So I guess just back to the site, we're developing in about 3 weeks out. Like I was saying, we're going to launch in June. So we're kind of in that pre-launch activity right now. So just getting all of the coaches kind of settled in and going through some pre-marketing stuff with them.
Spectacular.
And,
I went and
ready to go
researched a little
live
bit about
in
what you're doing,
probably June
obviously, from
1st.
being a coach myself. I've spent 20 years doing this and, just really enjoying every aspect of helping others to really reach that in themselves. And so I really think it's going to be awesome. I mean, I love everything that you're about.
Yeah, we're excited. And it's kind of funny how this whole idea came out, and there's some other places in the market that kind of do similar things with other gigs, I guess you would say, like Gig Salad and different platforms like that. But there just isn't anything that seems to exist specifically for coaching. So what I struggled with was finding a coach myself. So I went through a 3-year process, really vetting coaches, because I wanted someone to quickly help me attack doing, extra businesses and things like that. And I couldn't find anyone that I really gelled with. So I would have just died to have this a platform
that's so
like
awesome.
this, a couple years ago. So that's where
really
the idea
what
really came
I
from.
love about the topic that we're going to be talking about today. How to create a side hustle, while we're working, and how we can still travel and do all that as well. And I wanted to start out with, just so people who don't know what a side hustle is, can you tell us about it? What is a side hustle?
Well, a side hustle is an extra job, usually in addition to what your full-time or day job
Right?
is. So you usually have a quote unquote 9 to 5 because no one works a 9 to 5 anymore. But it's something you do. I know Gary Vaynerchuk, a very famous marketer, calls it your 7 to 2. So you're 7 to 2
Yeah, and
a.m. So
so,
it's kind of
with
the work
you, I
you're
mean,
doing
you've
outside of
managed hundreds
your
of
normal
millions
work.
of dollars in revenue and in corporate America and in your own businesses. What is the number one tip you have for those working to create a side hustle for themselves, a side gig?
I think the number one thing really is it's not easy. And having your own business, even if it's just having your own business and working for
Right.
yourself, it's not easy. There's a lot that goes
Mm-hmm.
into it, much more than we really realize when we think, oh, well, that looks like it'll be fun. So my number one is definitely to know your why and understand why you're doing it. A lot of people do it for the money or they hate their job and they had a bad day at work, but really understand why you want to work that extra time, and you're giving away your family time, your time with friends, a lot of free time, holidays, vacations. At the beginning, the first couple of years, it's a lot of commitment, and it's so I just want to make sure that everyone understands why they're truly doing it. So when they have a long night or they have a bad day, they can really focus on that
I
why and
love
that
that
end
because
game.
that why thing
So
is
there,
so
that kind of
powerful.
gets them
It's
through.
funny. I always tell people who've been on my show before that I have a winter crop of kids, grown children and grandchildren, believe it or not. And then I have a summer crop, and I had the summer crop literally 6 months before I turned 40, and they happen to be twins. And so, they're 12 today. But backtracking a little bit, I had a near-death experience in the 90s, and it was one of the near-death experiences that really showed me all the purposes I had come for and the potentials, around them. And, when I had, the near-death experience, I thought that it was all going to happen that day. I was going to be this woman doing these amazing things, that day. But obviously, I'm still dealing with life.
Mm-hmm.
And so the more that I got in touch with my why and the feeling of it, what I realized what I really began to do was to share that passion with the kids, because you got to include them in your why. Otherwise, they're not going to understand why you're trying to maneuver all these different things that might be going on around them. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I love that you bring that up. I mean, so many people say to me all the time, they're like, how do you find the time? And we so many of us, and I listen to Gary Vaynerchuk so much myself, so many of us want to be entrepreneurs. I mean, we're in that time and that day and age where we have that goal in our heart, and but we're dealing with everyday life, so how can we make the most of time and managing our career, and then trying to create a side hustle as well and deal with our personal life?
Mm-hmm.
What
Mm-hmm.
do you think?
That's where really, that's where the rubber really meets the road.
Mm-hmm.
And I travel 75% of the time. And
Oh,
just to
wow.
backtrack a little bit for me, my
Yeah.
why is I'm actually losing my eyesight. So slowly every year, I have a degenerative eye condition that it's tunnel vision, and eventually my eyesight will be gone, probably in the next 10 years, but it kind of it'll vary. So every time I trip over something or I run into a wall or I run into somebody because I can't see them, I'm reminded I need to get off my butt and start to work, because I might not be able to someday. So I love to work. I enjoy it. Actually, someone asked me the other day if I have any hobbies. I said, yeah, I love to start businesses. That's not what everybody else does. So, but getting back to your original question about finding the time, I think you just have to be ruthless with your time. And I think a lot of people don't understand what they're doing is wasting time.
Mm.
Everyone's on their cell phone, on Facebook or whatever they're doing. And there's so much time that you get lost in scrolling mindlessly through Facebook, or going on TV every night. And, I talk to people that have 6 or 7 shows that they watch every single week. That's 6 or 7 hours that you could be building a business and building a brand. That's a lot of time.
Right.
And in addition, the amount of energy that TV sucks out of you, I mean, your brain is active, so it's making you more tired. So I just am not a big fan of television. I understand, lounging and that kind of stuff, but the consistency of the need for television is certainly not something that I think is a good thing to fit in while you're working on your side hustle. But, in addition to time management, I think that, we talked about getting a coach at the beginning of our talk day. And I really think that having a coach is just a huge way to skip so many different steps. So I think if you're working in your day job, you're making enough money, hopefully, to support a little bit more of your side hustle. So you're not having to take as much on yourself, and you're able to work more in your genius zone. So I think that hiring a coach to help you get there, to do those managerial and tactical tasks and outsourcing them is going to be extremely important for your side hustle.
Oh, I found that so valuable, that information, because, as a coach myself, I mean, one of the things that I really talk about is living in your genius, because, we also have zones of excellence. And the thing that we don't realize is a lot of times we waste energy getting tied up in our zones of excellence when, like what you're saying, we could be developing a team of people, whether it be outsourcing or even, people within our own tribe that we're developing, and their zones of genius are actually yours and my zones of excellence. So it's boosting and elevating the genius and reaching out to more people like that. I mean, we're living in a day and age right now where, I like to bring a little bit more of the spiritual airy-fairy type of thinking into the mix, because, obviously I had a near-death experience. And then, going to, I wanted to comment on what you said about your eyes too, because I'm a believer that the how is none of my business. And as I get clear about what it is I really want in life, whether it be the desire or the feeling, what happens is that the how is none of my business. And so, referencing your eyes, I was told I was going to die in 6 months after I had given birth to my twins. I had another massive heart attack delivering the twins. And they said that my heart had stretched out the size of a cantaloupe, and I was going to die in 6 months, and then I was going to be on my back waiting for a heart transplant. And guess what? What I did was I connected to my why. I connected to what I wanted to bring forth to the world, which was to show people that literally anything in our body can heal. And so I acted as if everything was normal. I meditated and continually got in touch with the feeling of wholeness, and a whole lot of other stuff as well that I won't share right now. But the bottom line I wanted to get to was, guess what? I healed from 30% heart function and was told I was going to die and need a transplant to 100%. And that's where I am today. I live in that day-to-day understanding the value of the moment. And, the clearer I get about what I want and who I surround myself with, the quicker momentum shows up in my life as far as what it is, that I want. How is none of my business? I mean, it's like amazing how quickly that can happen for all of us,
Yeah. It's funny you brought that up, because I actually just got a bracelet that says, in German, it says "live in the now," because I am so bad at doing that. So I really am starting to try to value
Well, I always
that.
say what you're seeking is already seeking you. So somewhere I was meant to say that in this conversation with us, and and share. Yeah, absolutely. I love meeting people like you, because I feel your sincerity in the moment. I feel the uniqueness bringing forth to all of my viewers and everything. And I just love this, understand human nature as well. I mean, we're all working in jobs, and we're constantly talking about starting up a business and that we want to do something else, and nothing's happening. So what do you think, Karen, is stopping them?
I think there's really two things that are stopping them. And I think a
Mm,
big part of it is fear. And it's not only what if I fail, but what if I succeed? Then I'm in this box and I've lived in this box for X amount of years. And what if I jump to this box or this box? Then what do I do with the friends that are here? And what do I do? It's a lot of emotional and where you're at with your life. And I think that that to me, it seems like a lot of people are afraid. They'll say of failing, but I think it's a fear of success and having too much success. But in addition, like we talked about earlier, the other
mhm,
part of it is definitely time. And that's what you kind of alluded to earlier was, I'm living my daily life. I have children. I'm taking them here. I'm traveling. I'm doing this. I'm doing that.
mhm.
So how do I find the time? And I think that, getting down to that, it's so important to just, like I said earlier, just be ruthless with your time. Really, I like to make a list of what I think I'm wasting my time on, and every single week I come up with something. I was doing something this morning. I was posting on Facebook, and all of a sudden I got over to, I don't know, I like animals, so I was watching some kittens, and then all of a sudden I was looking at baby piglets. I don't know how I even got there, but there's just different things like that we have to set timers for ourselves, do activities like batching, which is doing the same activities consistently at consistent and certain times every week. So if we know we have activities to do, if we have 10 things that we need to do for our side hustle every single week, they need to be on the
Mhm,
calendar or they're never going to get done. So, a lot of it comes down not only to the fear, and
mhm.
then and that's an internal thing, but it's getting past that I don't have time. Every single person has the same 24 hours in the day, and everybody's heard that before, but it's so true. So it's how we use our time, and that's what's going to make you successful is
I
the
so
use of your
agree.
time.
I was in the professional fitness industry for 30 years. And,
Yeah.
obviously one of the things that I heard was that exact same thing on a regular basis around losing weight, around exercising, and I would say to people, it's all about creating a daily ritual. It's all about creating a habit and changing those ways that we look at certain habits in our lives. And I know for myself that one of the things that I do is just like you, is I write a list because I know that I can check off that list. But part of my list I have found is meditating and expressing gratitude first thing in the morning really shifts my, how I feel about the day, period. And then it also actually elevates how I feel about the tasks that I've set up for myself for each day. But that list is powerful.
Mhm. Uh-huh, uh-huh. I started doing the Miracle Morning
Uh-huh.
in August of last year and changed my life. And I had never meditated a minute in my life up until that point. And it's just, it's just so powerful having just taking the steps to even dedicate a couple minutes
Mm-hmm.
to exercising, meditating, writing, reading. Can't even remember what the other one was. Just sitting in silence and reaffirming and, like you said, having gratitude every single morning. The first thing you do, it's the most magical
My
thing
guest
literally ever
last
known.
week was Anil Gupta, and I've known Anil for about 2 years. I met him at Secret Knock in San Diego. And, when I first met him, he was walking around with a big red, like clown nose on his nose. And I was thinking,
I saw that
yeah,
interview. He had the
what
heart
the
on.
heck is this about?
Yes,
But,
yeah.
one of the things that I have to say last week that really touched on me, and I'm so sensitive, so I could just feel the tears coming up right now, is that he said, hold your hands up. And he had me look at my hands. And he said, you know what? Thank your hands every morning. Thank your hands. Look at every one of your fingers and say thank you for providing for you a means to eat your food, a means to write, and to reach for. I get the chills just saying it because it's awareness. He said awareness is the key every single day. And I felt like it was so
Mhm. It's
powerful
so true.
to anchor, in my awareness that day, because I've noticed this whole week that, based on the topic we're talking about, the whole not enough time, creating a side hustle, these are key elements that each of us need to bring into our morning ritual, and life would be so much easier.
Mm-hmm. And so much of the hustle hard and work hard and be your best and 4-hour work week and all that stuff, I think a lot of it comes back, like you were saying, to the heart-centered activities and, be a good person, and good things really happen. They really do. There's some crappy stuff that happens too, but and an optimist. I'm an eternal optimist, and sometimes everyone says that's a world of unicorns and rainbows.
I love that you said that, because it's like one of the things I always tell people. I said, listen, you know what? I've been to the other side twice. You know what? Yeah, there is rainbows and unicorns. And the truth of it is that, we are the creators of our own reality. And so, it's like I interviewed Dr. John DeMartini once from The Secret. And one of the things he said is, listen, life shows up for you through your mental equivalent to the degree you believe. And he says, so if your mental equivalent is on not worthy, not deserving, not good enough, rainbows and unicorns don't exist, then that's the reality that you're creating, because your perception is there and you're not opening yourself up to this grander scheme of unlimited possibilities. And so even going back to the topic that you're bringing forth to all of us, which is so amazing, is that, listen, we can still have a job, we can still make money, we can still travel, and we can have a side hustle too. That's awesome. And I love that. So let's talk about that. So how can we help, or you in this moment, help our viewers pinpoint, a passion and a business idea to add fulfillment to their life?
You cut out a little bit. Can you repeat the question?
How can you help our viewers right now to get started on pinpointing a passion to add fulfillment to their life with a side hustle?
Well, I think we need to go back to the why. So you need to understand, who, what, where, when, what are you doing this for? Again, if you're looking to leave your job because you hate your industry or you hate your job, well, maybe you don't belong doing a side hustle. But I think, back to actually creating the side hustle, I think you need to figure out what you want to do. And it's something that you're going to want to spend that 7 p.m. to 2 a.m., the things you're going to want to abandon your friends for, abandon fun, stop watching TV, and really get aggressive with your time. So you're going to want to do something that you find a lot of value in, either for yourself or a way to help others. And, that's what I love. What I'm doing is I've just created this because it was a need that I have, and it's something that I can do for other people too. So I really think, to get started, you just gotta go. But I think that, like I said before, the biggest thing is getting a coach and really having them guide you. If you don't have any business inclination, and I've taught business classes, so as far as setting up the business and doing the legalities, that that kind of stuff came naturally for me. But if you're struggling with that kind of stuff, you definitely need to just partner with people, join a mastermind. Right. That's another thing that is fantastic. Just like we talked about before, you are the average of the 5 people that you're spending the most time with, or you're talking to the most. So if you're masterminding with other like-minded people and people that are a step above or where you'd like to be, they're going to augment you and bring you to their level.
Yeah, reaching out to people, period. I was talking to Michelle Patterson, from the Women's Network, and, she had she was doing this side thing, and then she got given the opportunity from Maria Shriver to take over the Women's Network. But she had a week to create $1 million. And you know what she said? She was telling my business partner what she did was literally reach out to all her friends and all the people she knew and said, hey, you know what? I need help. I'd like some ideas, and then started fleshing out on paper, how it looked for her.
Yeah, just reaching out to a group of people who can support what you're doing. It's fascinating. I recently joined a couple different masterminds just because I needed a new set of eyes and a some new scenery, and it's been amazing. I met a guy a couple weeks ago that's just changed my life. And I definitely recommend getting involved in things like that, even if you have to pay a little bit. It's definitely
You
worth
know,
it.
it's funny too, because as I've grown in myself and I've let down the barriers and the walls of worrying about what people think, one of the things that I've really done is not be afraid to be vulnerable. To, you know, I recognize that each one of us is so unique and special. And, you know, that good old ego can just go bye-bye, because the truth is that, you know, there's so many of us out there that have amazing talents. And when we're willing to really be vulnerable and just say, hey, you know, this is something I want to do. And, you know, you know, do you have any ideas, to ask for ideas, you know?
Yeah. And I love that statement. What would you do if you had no, if you needed no money,
Mhm.
what would you do? And I can't remember. There's a flowery
Mhm.
way to say that, but if you had no money and
Mhm.
needed no money, what would you do with your life? And if you can do anything that ties back to that, then you're living your
I like that you
purpose.
say that, because, you know, one of the things I love Abraham Hicks. And, you know, Abraham Hicks is all about the feel good and to get in touch with the feeling of what it is you want to do. And so she's always saying, you know, ask yourself the question, you know, what is it I really want? And I notice for myself, and I say, what I really want is just like what you're talking about, to travel the world and help people of all ages discover
Mhm.
their own greatness.
Yeah.
Ooh, that feels good. What I really want is to just be talking, because I'm a talker and I love to talk, and that's my purpose. Ooh, that feels good. So you see, as I'm defining and declaring what it is I really want,
Yeah.
I'm in alignment with what feels good. And therefore what's happening is people are showing up that, you know,
Yeah.
but I love that you keep going back to all this, because it's so huge.
It's so true, and it's kind of funny because the reason I actually started this site was, like I had said before, I was struggling to find a coach, and during that time, the reason I was looking really for a coach is because I knew, you have a time frame, when you're going to lose your vision, so you need to get aggressive. So I wanted to actually, I wanted to find a coach to help me find my why. So that's why I'm so passionate about this. So I didn't like what anyone was saying. I just wanted to fill out my life story and then have one say, well, you need to be whatever, race car driver. I just wanted someone to tell me this is what you need to be. Well, after 3 years of doing that, and I hired Vedic astrologers who are
Mm-hmm.
fantastic, by the way. But you just got to figure it out on your own. And it's your life experiences. And like you said, just really feeling what feels good for yourself, and where you want to be. Where do you want to be? Where do you want
Mm-hmm.
to be living? Where do you want to be? If you want to be tied to a certain location, or you don't want to be tied to a certain location, we need to think about that financially. Where do you want to be? Some people have $1 million and it's not enough. Some people have $1 million and it's great plenty. So $100,000 is a lot of money to in certain businesses. So it just kind of depends on everyone's reason to start a side hustle is different. So it's really getting down to the reason and then defining what it is
So
from there.
basically you're saying that anyone can create a side hustle.
I think everyone has a business inside of them. And I love, it's so funny. Going back to college days, we'd go out on Friday night and everyone would know to look for me in the corner of the dance club or wherever. And I would have someone in the corner and I was trying to help them, with their life. I was trying to help them figure out how to start a business or something. So even I've been doing that forever. I just love to help people find their passion and actually do it. And, we can talk all day long, but until you actually act, nothing ever happens.
You know, that's so true. And I believe too that it's inspired action, that the more you, like you said, you know, sometimes just letting go of the people and really tapping into the inside of you, and you begin to have a conversation with yourself about what it is you want, that feels good, what you're good at. And then also, you know, really learning to gauge your own intuition and how, you know, you will be shown different ways to take inspired action around what it is you're getting clearer about that you want. You know, I think that's so important.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, there's so much to it, and it's so exciting, and just going back to, finding a coach and working with a coach. My coach, after I started working with the business coach I'm still working with, within 3 months, we had tripled the revenue in the business that I was working on then. We had simplified processes. We had just things that I was spending a lot of time working on, like finding a proper customer resource management software, so a proper CRM. I would spend an entire day trying to connect with the right resource, and wasting time on things that, yeah, they're important, but really valuing, setting a time. Okay, today I'm going to spend an hour doing this. Tomorrow I'm going to spend an hour doing that. And she really helped me get focused and realize what's important, what's not important. And sometimes you need to outsource things. And if people do 80% as good of a job as you, sometimes that has to be good enough. So another big thing that is so important is to realize that perfectionism isn't a word. It's just, it holds people back. And I suffer from it, and I'm in recovery, and it's high five. But, I think as a business owner, you can't be perfect. I've had even family members come to me and say, "Oh, I saw on your Twitter page there was a word spelled wrong." Well, I outsourced that, but I was like, so, I'm not going to live my life trying to perfect everything, because then you're just held back because you'll never take the
Oh my
risk.
God, that is so huge. I too am recovering from perfectionism, and a lot of my story and the life I've lived was because I thought if I could be perfect, that I would receive love, affection, and appreciation. Because I think we're all searching for that and seeking that within ourselves. And one of the biggest struggles for me was to, even like when I went through college and I first started getting on video and television and radio and stuff like that, is it was like retake after retake after retake, because I wasn't going to let it go out into the public until it was perfect. And so these life's experience kept showing up in my face that were challenging and struggling, because they were showing me, where when I was trying to be somebody I wasn't, when I was trying to be somebody that somebody else said I needed to be. And, today, just listening to what you're saying, and obviously understanding the importance of a coach. I mean, one of the things that I notice people struggle with is, and I really want to ask your opinion on this, is people struggle with the money. They struggle with the breakthrough of, I can't afford it, or I don't have enough, or, that sort of thing. And so how do you get them to, how do you break that paradigm for them in order to get them to coach with you so that you can really, truly help them get to this next level for themselves?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Well, I am a true believer of the old saying, you got to make money to spend money, or you got to spend money to make money. So I am definitely of the school of thought that, I need to invest in myself. I mean, a lot of us went to college. That's investing in yourself. How much money? I don't want to get started on the educational system, but think of how much money a lot of us spent in college that we just thought was normal. It was normal to have hundreds of thousands of dollars of debt, but to spend $1,000 a month or whatever it might be for a coach, or for a LLC, or to, hire someone, a virtual assistant, to pay them a couple $100s a month to come and help you part-time, to have someone clean your house, things like that. We struggle with the little things, or we struggle with the big things, but then we'll go and spend $100 on dinner and, $300 on a pair of shoes. It's just really realizing what's important. So I think the money is usually there if we really take a look back and, peel back the curtain and see where we're spending. But for those of us who are genuinely in a difficult financial place, start with a free resource. There's a lot of free resources out there, because usually we trade dollars for time. You trade dollars for time. So if we're as we're starting out and we have less money, we
Mm-hmm.
have more time than money. So spend more time looking at the free resources that are available. There's all kinds of YouTube videos, podcasts, things like that. So if you're looking to start a side hustle, spend more time doing that. And as you get older and you have more money, or if you have more money just in general financially, that's when you can pull in other resources to help you, and you can pay to consolidate those hours and hours of podcasts and resources that are, yeah, you can find it for free. Yeah, probably a lot of the stuff that I talk to my coach about, I can probably find for free if I'm willing to spend a week constantly listening to free resources. I can maybe dig it out. But someone who has already put it together for you, it's just invaluable. How much is your time worth? And that's what I like to do is that actually figure out a calculator. How much money do you make in a year? And then actually figure out your hourly wage. So how much are you worth per hour? So if it's something that you can outsource for less than your hourly rate, then do it. It's a no-brainer. It's just a no-brainer. So I was lucky enough to do that, and within a week I had a virtual assistant, a housekeeper, a reception. It was the best week of my life, and I've never looked back. It's been really fantastic. And I was one that when I started working with my coach, I would nickel and dime her. I can't believe she stayed with me. I really can't. But I would nickel and dime her and say, I can't afford the extra $50 or whatever it was. And she was literally changing
Oh my God,
my
this
life.
is such perfect information, because it's the same thing when I trained with Mary Morrissey, because I'm a life mastery coach with Mary Morrissey, and it was the same sort of thing. It's like literally we would sit and we would jot down how much I wanted to make in 15 minutes, how much I wanted to make in an hour, because what we were doing was we were stretching that muscle. We were building that muscle. And like, even when I interviewed Dr. John DeMartini, he uses a story about, when he thought he was only worth, a love basket. He put a love basket in the middle of the room to be paid. And he said he was getting so angry and upset and not understanding why people were only putting $1 or $2 in a love basket. But he said that as he started to flesh out, the questions inside himself, what he discovered is that he didn't believe he was worth more than that. And so he started to build his muscle. Eventually he asked for $25 per person. And then eventually he started to stretch the muscle. But, and it's the same thing even with me, as I started to grow in my own confidence level and value level, I started less and less worrying about the money. And not only that, what I really realized truly is this is a reciprocal universe. And we all have a gravitational field. And so what we put out, we pull back. And so if we're worrying about the extra $50, like you're talking about, or the money, we literally will pull experiences back that will cause us to have less money, because that's what we're putting out, that we don't have enough. Whereas if we completely push that aside and, like you're saying, connect to our why, and then be willing to, maybe take a little bit of baby steps, outsourcing, and seeing what's going to be starting to show up in our experiences. I mean, it's so valuable what you're saying.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And one other thing I want to add, and I'm actually going through an experience right now that this isn't the first time, but you're going to get burned. You're going to run into people that hurt you. You're going to deal with people that you thought you could trust and you can't. And especially, I think if you're spending, you're working in the evenings and early in the mornings and on the weekends. So it's limited. So it's like you almost put more trust in them, because it's like, well, they know that I'm really hustling and I'm working hard. They want to help me. They want to help me. I'm a good person. And it doesn't always happen that way. And you run into some really good salespeople who can get you into a situation where you're kind of getting deeper and deeper into, or you make some mistakes and you invest here, or you hire this resource, or you purchase this program and it doesn't pan out to be what it is. But you can't let that get you down. You really can't. You just have to use it as a learning experience, because I guarantee you're going to learn something from the negative experience. But just realize that something bad is going to happen, and what I actually do is just I get excited when it happens, because yes, now
Me
I
too.
can
I
move
love
forward, because until bad stuff happens, you're completely stuck always. So just look at it as a growing
I
experience.
love it. So what are let's talk about that for a second. What are some side hustle ideas that our viewers can do to make money? Do you have any ideas? Okay.
Well, I have a lot of ideas, and I want to do them all, so I'll share some of them. I think that passive income is where it's at. So you have to think of a way to get the knowledge out of your brain and get it into a program of some kind that you can sell. Either sell a program or figure out a way to drop ship things on Amazon, or resell things. Or there's so many different things that the internet and resources that the internet gives us that we could never do before. So I was actually making a list of things that I'm pretty good at, and thinking how I can create videos from just the knowledge that I have. I used to be one of the best saxophone players in the state, so I can probably create a training video on that. So just think of stuff you're good at, or that you've been able to do. I mean, there's so many ways. I don't think that making the money is the problem. It's just doing the work.
That's so true, because I think of a lot of times too, I can have a million ideas and literally, just like what we were talking about earlier, not do any of them. I mean, I'm a total, idea person, but when it takes, implementing the ideas, I struggle, because, I don't focus on one thing at a time, and finish that. What I do is I got this one done. I went and bought another domain over here on GoDaddy. I bought this one on GoDaddy, and I have all these, websites lined up for all these businesses I have these ideas for.
I'm the same way. But I think that a lot of people are and I think it's okay to be multi-interested and to be dabbling in different areas. But I think, and actually I talked to a really smart individual he's just a genius business guy a couple weeks ago, he said, Karen, you just got to focus in. And it's so true. And he said, just work on one thing that is your main focus at a time. So he said, make this one thing your main focus. You can always come back to this other stuff, because you'll always have that other stuff, and you're always going to have an interest in real estate investing. That's another good thing in certain markets to get into. You can borrow money. And this is another thing.
No, I love it.
To go off on a tangent that Gary Vaynerchuk talks about a lot is borrowing money from. There's so many wealthy people whose money is sitting in the bank at such a low interest rate right now. If you can show them you can make them money, there's so many different ways to do that. And real estate's really a good way to do that. Another way to do that is there's a lot of baby boomers who have businesses right now who are on their way out. So if you can go in for a couple of years and actually partner with them and show them how you can increase their revenues over a couple, if you can go in and say, you know what, I'm a social media expert, I'm a marketing expert, I'm really great at making pizza, whatever it is, and go in and make a difference in their business as they're exiting, there's a huge opportunity, because right at that era, there's so many different businesses. Walk up and down the street and you'll find one to partner with.
I have a friend because I've trained with Les Brown, and he has this guy that works with him. His name's Billionaire PA. And this guy's story is freaking incredible. And it's very much around what you're saying is so he had these goals, and he started to take those postie papers, and he would stick them to the top of his car, because he was living in Los Angeles. He had gone to Los Angeles. He had all these goals, and he really wanted to achieve these things. So what he did is he started to develop T-shirts with famous quotes on them. But he would put these Post-it notes on the top of his car, and now he's got a whole video company. He's got a company literally that every Tuesday in Hollywood, a whole huge group of people show up at this one particular room, and they speak their dreams into being. And so when you're talking about whether it's real estate people, whether it's investors, whatever, every single person in the room shares, where they can help that person achieve their dreams and goals.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Isn't that cool?
That's amazing. Oh my gosh, we have to talk about Les Brown offline because my husband's obsessed with him. So.
Yeah, no, I know Les very well. So basically, what are some ways that we can set goals to make sure we're living a life of our fullest potential when we have all these ideas?
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of different processes to follow. There's a lot of Brian Tracy, Chalene Johnson. I like her push goal system. You really have to make goal setting your own process, because what everybody else does doesn't work for you. So what I've done is I like to follow let's set the long term, the 10-year plus goals. Where do I want to be? And that's kind of what we talked about. Do I want to be living in, a desolate island, or do I want to be in the city? Do I want to be close to my family? So kind of, what is your end goal? Where do you want to be in 10 plus years? And then scale it back. Where do you want to be in 5 years? Where do you see yourself in 5 years? And these goals are going to change all the time. So don't think since you write them down one time, they're never going to change. And then you have to scale it back and take it down. And I like to do 90 days. So what am I going to do in the next 90 days? And then I like to list about 10 things, maybe 20, specific to my business, my life, faith, relationships and spirituality, different things, maybe the top 5 or 6 areas in your life that are very important to you. And then list out what you will accomplish in each of those areas. And instead of saying, I'm going to go on weekly dates with my husband, it should be, I will go on weekly dates with my husband. So not only is it setting the long-term, mid-term, but then it's every day, and I like to do it after I finish the Miracle Morning when I'm scribing, writing at the end. I set my goals for the day, and I don't let them get over 5. I know a lot of people say 3, but I tend to get more done. So I like to set 5 goals for myself every single day that I can cross off the list. Because I know, especially for me, and I think a lot of people have that same sense of excitement when we can cross something off the list. It's the best feeling ever. So I think just making sure every single morning, and I even do it on the weekends, to make sure that you're setting very specific goals that you will accomplish. And then also, in addition to knowing your optimal work time. So if you're a morning person, do it in the morning. I have a frog that I have on my desk because I love the book and the saying about eat that frog. So do your hardest activity right away in the morning, because then nothing worse can happen for the rest of the day. So I like to do that first. But everyone's different. Some people like to do that at 3 a.m. in the nighttime. So it just depends on what your day allows. But, being a person that has the full-time job, I'm working at 5 in the morning a lot of times. Sometimes I'm working late as well. So it just kind of depends on how your day
So what is the motivating factor that's driven your success?
Well, I like to say it's probably my upbringing. It's kind of hard to talk about. I grew up in a very, very poor family, so we didn't have a lot, and it's very it was really hard. We didn't have anything, and I wasn't able to do a lot of the things that I wanted to do, but we were full in our hearts. And when I look back at it, I'm so lucky and so blessed for what I had. But what motivated me was I didn't want to be in that situation, and I didn't want to have to provide that life for my family. So I wanted to be able to create a future financially, and also something that I love, so I could provide that beautiful surrounding that I was given as a home. So I would say for sure, just kind of reversing the cycle. I would say that the other thing is for sure just my vision, losing my eyesight. That's definitely motivated me. But I have a pretty entrepreneurial background, and my father has always been trying things, and they had no money, but he was always still trying to find the next big thing. But he was really a smart guy and played in the stock markets and that kind of stuff. So I've always been really interested in that. So it's been probably bred into me, is I guess is probably the easiest way to sum it up.
Also
I
have,
think we're
have let
frozen.
yourself be okay with failing. So that open and that no longer worrying about, failing being an option, but more of an experience seems like it's really driven you more towards reaching up to greater, grander ideas and goals.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, and realizing also just exactly what you were talking about earlier is you're not going to be you're not going to be everybody's everything. So you just have to find enough somebodies that you
Mm-hmm.
can be something for. So your audience is not going to be everybody, and you're not going to be friends with everybody. So getting comfortable enough in your skin to realize that has been really a huge step for me, because I had a lot of trouble with that too.
So, what can you take away from your life's experience so far? What have you taken away from, little girl to where you are right now?
Yeah, yeah. I've changed a lot. I would say even in the last 8 years, I've changed so much. I used to be I will be the CEO, and if you're late for work, then you're fired. And if you don't do your job right, then there's no questions asked. And now I definitely have found that I've grown some compassion as I've gotten older. So, and I think that probably comes a little bit with age, but also life experiences, and realizing that, everyone, and accepting that everyone doesn't have the same desires as everyone else. Just because I want to work all the time, and not work all the time, but work a lot, I like to travel. There's certain things I just don't enjoy that a lot of people really value. A lot of people value that me time, and I just don't need that. So I think just about myself, just that self
Mm-hmm.
awareness, and I think that everyone
So
is
huge.
to be self aware.
So huge. So, do you think you'll stay in the corporate world now that this business of yours, this, transformation gurus, I mean, you think you'll develop it and grow it and it be a home thing?
Yeah, I have a lot of stuff. So as I lose my vision, I probably won't be able to
Mm-hmm.
work. Because since I travel by myself a lot, so that's kind of a big motivating factor. But it's funny because I love what I do, and I do some teaching and consulting on that. I do global logistics, so I ship stuff kind of all over the world. So it's an industry that I really enjoy. But I don't know. I'm assuming probably not.
Okay. So what do you want to leave us with? What do you want to leave our listeners with around your new business, around Transformation Gurus, how they can find out more about you
Sure,
and where they can go to
sure.
find out about your website, all of that.
Yeah, yeah. Well, we're all over social media. So we're at Transformation Gurus, and on Twitter, we just got Transform Gurus. But Transformation Gurus is really a place for people like you and I that are struggling to find a coach, and have kind of uncovered other places, or just kind of come straight here and look for a coach. But it's a place to come to connect with the right coach and get results in either your business or your life, your health, your finance, your relationships, in just the click of a button. And for coaches, it's a place to connect with your ideal clients. I know a lot of coaches who just struggle with the marketing and the PR side of it. So kind of skipping that and letting us kind of do that work for you. That's kind of the way we've set it up. So we are online at www.transformationgurus.com. That's transformation, Gurus, it's plural. But we aren't live. We'll be live very soon, but we are taking coaches. So we're definitely excited to offer that. And we're offering something to your viewers called Founding Members. And we're taking just 100 coaches right now, and about 15 in each vertical. But to find out more about that, you can go to transformationgurus.com/founding-members. And if you're someone that is looking for a coach, just go to transformationgurus.com/find a coach.
Okay, so I put in here transformationgurus.com founding members.
Founding-members.
Founding-members. Perfect. And I had put in all of your other information earlier before the show, your contact.
Yeah, I saw that popping up when I was having technical difficulties.
Yeah, so I wanted to make sure that you knew that was there, and all of our viewers know that that is there as well. Is in this feed here. There is her contact information, her email address, her website. I just put on here just to let me make sure again, transformationalgurus.com/founding.members. Our staff.
Transformation Gurus.
Transformationgurus.com/founding-members. All right, got it. Well, you know what? I'm in my 50s, so that good old let me see up close thing is happening here with Sherry Gideons. All right. Well, thank you so much, Karen. I really appreciate you joining in with the Whole Life Living show today. It's been awesome, amazing, and you have really shared your heart and your expertise and insight. So I am very grateful for that. That's what I love about having this show is that I get to bring forward the gift you are. So
thank you. I really enjoyed it as well.
Awesome. And for those of you who have been viewing the Whole Life Living show, I want to thank you so much for joining in with us today. You can visit the official website for the Whole Life Living show at wholelifeliving.com. I am your host, Sherry Gideons. I am a international speaker, author, life mastery coach, helping you clarify what you want in life so that you can win and succeed. And our guest for next week is Dr. Simon Casey. He is an amazing man, and he is going to be sharing all about the emotional secret. He's written an amazing book, and he helps us to overcome our emotions and how to understand how they've benefited our life, but how to get rid of the things that are no longer serving us. So join us next week for that. Until then, you create a fabulous week. Thank you so much. Thank you, Karen. Bye now.
Bye.